Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a quick review for you of this little guy right here. Well, this big guy. This is the CRKT Seismic. And first off, I want to thank very much my Patreon patrons who make it possible for me to just order random knives randomly without even thinking twice about it. Just like, yeah, I better check one out for the channel. Boom, done. Thank you very much, patrons. That is a wonderful blessing you've given me. Next thing, let's do a size comparison right quick. Here it is against, actually, a ruler. I don't know why I went with the ruler first, but here, why not? It is a 4-inch long knife, so this is a big freaking knife. And we'll go ahead and compare it to the Spyderco Delica. As always, the Ontario Rat number 2, and your Spyderco Paramilitary PM2 right over here. So you can see here that this is a big piece. Even compared to all of my other size comparison pieces, this is a beefy one. It's a nice big old knife right here. So, there you go. Next thing, this guy is using the CRKT Deadbolt Lock. You can see here, this is the Deadbolt Lock right here, and it is actually a unique little system in that it has this little thing right here. This is how you unlock the knife. You press in this little area here, and that actually presses out this area. So watch, I'm going to press that button, and that lifts that up, and that allows that allows the blade to close. So when I fully deploy the knife, what you're going to see here, so I pull this out. Can I do this slowly? Yeah. This is going to fall into some holes in the blade and lock the blade shut, and then to unlock it, you have to press that back out of the blade, and there you go. So that's kind of the big news about this guy. It is the Deadbolt Lock. The Deadbolt Lock is a new thing. It is a new lock design, and it is unlike any lock design that I've seen before personally, so, you know, it's always neat to check out. And that's kind of the big news here, so let's go on ahead and do, and then finally, this is going to be a quick review because, yeah, let's go on ahead and talk about the good and the not so good about this guy right here. So on the good side, to start with, I think this feels pretty ambidextrous. Lefties, maybe correct me if I am wrong here, but you have a left side, well, I know that you've got a left side clip mount option here. And then I feel like even, you know, for me, I'm pretty able to, you know, handle this guy with my left hand. It's just a question of what finger you're pressing the block button with. So it feels like I should be okay using this with either hand. So, you know, I don't know. Lefties, let me know in the comments if this actually sucks for you. But at least to my impression, it feels pretty good in that way. Next thing on this guy, this is a very big, beefy knife here. It is large and freaking in charge. For some people, that's going to be a beautiful thing. For me, not so much. But if you're going to make a super beefy lock, which is what they're trying to do, I guess it makes sense to do something that's very beefy and big. So that's something at least. Next thing, the design on this guy is interesting at the very least. They've kind of gone for a weird aesthetic on it with all the curving, plunging lines here with the backspacer. It's sort of techno-futuristic. You know, it's certainly a weird-looking knife. It's unlike anything else. It's almost got like a harpoony look to it. I don't know why, but I get like a Moby Dick thing off of this guy. Like, you know, I should be chasing after a white whale to my own ultimate doom. I don't plan to, by the way. I much prefer being the Starbuck in this situation, but that's beside the point. Obscure literary reference. So the design on this guy is interesting. Next thing, I do really like the forward choil here. You can see here that the new the flipper tab that CRKT's been doing lately has this really big open forward choil, which gives you a great opportunity to go, not only to sharpen the knife to its fullest extent here down to the edge, but also to choke up a little bit. And this gives you a really good grip down here as well as a good grip back here. And that's kind of a beautiful thing. I really do like that, and I think for people of pretty much any hand size, you're going to be able to choke forward here quite comfortably, and that's always nice to see. And finally, actually not quite finally, it is something that is unique and different. CRKT, one of the very best things I can say about them as a company is that they try weird things. And this lock is a weird thing. This is different. I've not seen anything else like that, and there aren't that many people who are trying brand new locks and production knives on a regular basis, and CRKT is regularly doing so. So I absolutely have to praise them for doing that. I love seeing new locks out there because we never know. You know, for a while, flipper frame locks weren't a thing, and now they're the thing. So I'd like to see something else come, you know, about and change the world again. You know, that's always a great thing to see. And then, so I like very much the fact that they're trying something a little bit new and different here. And then finally, on the good side, the deadbolt lock mechanism is actually pretty clever. You'll get a much better sense of it by watching the disassembly. I really do think you should watch the disassembly video on this knife because it'll let you understand a little bit better how it works. But what they've done here is first off, they've decoupled the detent ball and the detent arm, that is, from the locking mechanism at all, which means that you can have the lockup be whatever you'd like and not have to worry about it changing the detent. That's kind of cool. But also, it just has a very, very strong lock because it's got a huge piece of metal that's inside the blade, preventing this guy. Look, I didn't do any kind of like, hanging a freaking, animal carcass in a warehouse, meat boot style testing on this because that's not my shtick. However, I was completely unable to make this lock fail. It seems to be absolutely solid and whatnot. So, overall, and then you get no blade play in either direction. It's good to go when you've got things dialed in correctly. So, I'm definitely I'm a fan of the Deadbolt Lock. I think it's an interesting mechanism, and especially seeing it on the Shock, the XOC, which I don't happen to have at the moment. There is some impressive stuff to it. So to me, all of that is the good here, is that the deadbolt mechanism is pretty clever. It is something very new, and I like seeing cricket doing new things. It's got the forward choil that I really do like. The design is interesting in a weird Moby Dicky sort of way. And it is a very ambidextrous sort of knife. On the bad side, unfortunately, there's a fair amount I don't care for either. I mean, this is a huge knife. 4 inches is a fair amount for a lot of folks in their everyday life. It is also quite heavy. If I put this guy down on your scale here, we are coming in here for 4 inches at 6.38 ounces. That's a beefcake right there. This is a big knife. And you definitely feel it. And, yeah. The blade is also, by the way, pretty super thick here, both in terms of the material and in terms of your grind. Not a big fan of that. Price on this guy is okay. It's $120, which is, for a brand new locking mechanism, yeah, I'm not a big fan of the knife, so that's not a big, I don't care for the price, but that's partly because I don't care for the knife. Maybe if I loved it, I would feel differently. Whatever, not a big deal. The ergos on this guy, actually, that is getting to be a bigger deal. The ergos on this guy are not amazing, and more specifically, take a look at this. Right in this little area here, they have this weird little prominence. I don't know why that is there, because the only thing it seems to do is to make this little forward choil more uncomfortable. I just deeply don't get it. It makes zero sense to me, and it hurts the ergos, and the ergos overall aren't amazing. You've got relatively sharp edges in a bunch of places here. I'm not a big fan of that. Next thing, the disassembly on this guy is relatively complex. It's not complex in the sense of, oh god, this is touch and go, I can't do this. It's just complex in the sense of, yeah, I'm going to be here for a little while. Do I mind doing a disassembly of this? No, not at all. I think it's a perfectly fine knife to take apart. It doesn't strike me as one of the ones where it's like, oh god, this is going to be hell. No, it's just going to take a little while. There were a lot of details. There were a lot of moving parts involved with the deadbolt lock, and there's a little bit of, I don't know if expertise is the term, but you just need to use some care. But that's definitely something to keep in mind. This is not a knife you're taking apart in the back of a moving truck. Although you shouldn't take any knife apart in the back of a moving truck, just saying. Then finally on the, actually no, not finally on the bad side, a quick review. We're doing, there is some lock stick in here. As you can hear here, it definitely has a little bit of stick. It's not like, oh my god, I can't break this free stick. It's just lock stick. And that's not something I'm in super love with. I would really like to see less of that going on. That would just be better, generally speaking. I don't want to see too much of that. And some folks have said theirs wore off after a while. I fidgeted with this a whole bunch, hoping it would go away, and it's gotten a little better than the day I got it. Maybe after a little while longer it would do better. But it's definitely a thing. Speaking of fit and finish, centering on this guy isn't amazing. It definitely has been better, and in fact, I at one point in time, it's come a little bit loose here. The pivot has a tendency to loosen on the inside there. Maybe I need to be using like serious high-grade thread locker on this, and I haven't been. But when I first put it back together, centering was a little bit better than this. But unfortunately, as a result, it has developed a little tiny bit of blade play here. It's easy to fix, but still. I'm not a big fan of the fact that the centering wasn't perfect, even when it was dialed in. Nor the fact that that pivot is trying to loosen in there. It's kind of a weird design. Check it out in the disassembly. You'll see what I mean there. Then finally, on the ugly front, or well, at least what would be ugly for me if this weren't a quick review, is the blade grind. Take a look at the freaking thickness behind the edge here, guys. That's not amazing. And of course, they're using super thick blade stock here, and they're relatively shallow grind here, and it's not super hollow. This just doesn't cut so well. It will cut, but not well. I'm not a big fan of the blade on this guy. It just isn't really well ground to be a great cutting tool. It is really ground more like a pry bar than it is a knife, and certainly they're trying to advertise a high-end, high durability lock, so maybe that's a design choice. But it's not a design choice I'm happy with. This is not a great knife for, boxes and envelopes and the kinds of things you very often need a knife for. So, to me, all of that is the bad here, is that the blade grind isn't impressive, the centering isn't great, with the pivot having a bit of a tendency to loosen. But again, maybe that's fixable with a different thread lock and solution. There is some lock stick, the disassembly is complex, the ergo's on amazing, it's quite heavy, the price is so-so, and it is pretty huge, unfortunately. Final conclusions. At some level, the Seismic here feels like a life support system for a new lock. They have created a brand new knife for whom this little area right here is the sole focus. I feel like they started here and then made a big knife that it belonged in. So at some level, it's great to see them experimenting. I'm very happy to see CRKT making new knives with, new locks, with doing some weird things, some interesting different things. That's great. But at another level, I do like seeing new locks out there because, like I said, we don't know that something brand new is going to be amazing until it's been tried. And so that's good to see. And honestly, the lock seems like another interesting choice. I'm not going to weigh in on whether the, oh my God, durability of it. I'm not going to hang weights off it from a freaking vise. I'm not doing that kind of thing because I think, honestly, for most people's everyday lives, all of the locks we have, a well-designed pocket knife lock of any kind is going to work just fine. But the thing is, this seems to work fine in both this and on the XOC, the Shock, which I don't have handy at the moment, but still. It's a fine little lock. I do hope that they can shrink it down a little bit, or at least they start putting it in knives that are a little bit smaller, but mostly it's nice to see the option. Now, that said, this particular knife, the Seismic itself, rather than the lock and rather than the conception, to me feels mostly like a test bed. The size of it is huge, the weight is up there, the ergos aren't great, there is lock stick, the build quality isn't really very good, and the blade grind is really disappointing to me. That's the biggest issue here. If the blade grind on this guy were just like, yes, super, gets down to a super thin edge there, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I can live with a lot of that, but the fact that they ground it like that is just like, oh, no, that doesn't do it for me. And so my final conclusion is that I think that the Deadbolt Lock here is a very impressive lock, and I'm really looking forward to them putting in a knife that's a little bit more compelling. So, there you go. That's the Seismic here. I think it's an interesting piece, but it won't produce a seismic shift in the market overnight, but its predecessors may well. So there you go. Hope this has been interesting. Have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day, and I hope the Seismic shook things up a little bit for you. Okay. Bye now.